In 2017, I built my first successful product business. A game server hosting provider for a survival game called 7 Days to Die. I've been running it on the side for the last few years, but a couple months ago, I sold it. So I wanted to share the whole story, from ideation to exit. It might not be a lot of money, but it was a very important experience for me. So I wanted to give it some closure by documenting the important events and sharing the perspectives of the different people involved. This video is sponsored by Grammarly. This all started when I read an indie hacker's interview about a game server hosting business for Ark Survival Evolved. I didn't play survival games and I didn't know player-hosted games was a thing, but it seemed right up my alley because of my game dev background, so I spent the next few months reverse engineering the business for 7 Days to Die. I wanted a mid-sized project like this to get better at web development, and I also wanted a proven business model, because most of the apps and games I made in the previous 5 years didn't work out, and I had already quit my day job, so my top priority was to make enough money to keep working for myself. Once the site was up and running, I got my first customers from Google Adwords. The site started ranking very high on Google search. I still don't know why. Maybe it was because I was spamming it everywhere, maybe it was because the site was relevant, or maybe it was because I bought some backlinks on Fiverr. But from there, I was off to the races. And by off to the races, I mean I didn't do anything. Because just when the site started to grow organically, I got into a startup incubator where I had to pitch the business a lot, and it was hard for me to explain why 7D 2D server hosting was going to be the next big thing, when I didn't even play 7 Days to Die, so I turned this into my side hustle and focused on other ideas which were easier to communicate to a general audience. There was this 2-week period when I tried expanding to Rust, but my conversion rate from free trial to signups was very low, so I shut it down. If I was able to better communicate the vision of 7D 2D, not just to other people, but to myself, I would have spent more time on the project. And there are many ways to improve communication skills. For example, you can use Grammarly's digital writing assistant, which helps 30 million people write more clearly and effectively every day. You can get Grammarly on different platforms. If you download the browser extension, you automatically get suggestions as you type on different websites. The basic spelling and grammar suggestions are available for free, but upgrading to Premium provides more in-depth writing feedback. For example, Grammarly Premium includes a tone detector, which helps me sound friendly and professional when sending important business emails. It also provides clarity suggestions to remove unnecessary words and vocabulary suggestions to replace boring or overused words. I've done a lot of small ML projects in the last year because I want to get good enough to build and launch a really high quality product like Grammarly by myself. But I'm not there yet, so for now, you can support the channel by going to grammarly.com/willkwan to sign up for a free account and get 20% off Grammarly Premium today. Fast forward to late 2019, I decided to give it another go, so I asked my friend Moshe for help. This time, we were going to expand to Unturned. What was your initial reaction when I first asked you to help me out on this?
So I think I was initially very interested because one, I never actually run a business before. And number two, from the technical perspective, I think a lot of devs, when they develop, like to pretend, almost like they're in the local environment, but when you're running something like a 10 to 20 sort of machine cluster, it's a little bit more challenging of a problem.
Why do you think we weren't able to expand our business to Unturned?
I mean, to be honest, I just think we didn't care.
Meanwhile, I received an interesting email from an M&A firm, but I was skeptical that I could sell the business because it requires intricate knowledge to run, and it wasn't making much money. Do you remember how you found out about 7D 2D server hosting?
Oh my God, yes. I couldn't sleep at night, and I opened my phone, and I Googled something about SaaS companies, and I found your list, your video. Like if an M&A firm were to write a blog post, that's the kind of blog post, because that kind of attract the exact people we want to attract, which are people who want to build the SaaS, or maybe you have a smaller one and they want to grow it. And so I saw it and I have to get him. And that's why I kept chasing you, because I saw the potential, and I knew based on the bio that we have, I knew people would jump on it.
I wanted to grow the business more before selling it, but Moshe and I both had other priorities, so we didn't get much done. Although, I did have fun redesigning the website, which totally isn't stolen from some reusable CSS components. The firm followed up 9 months later, and this time, I was willing to give it a shot. They only get paid if the acquisition goes through, so there wasn't much downside, and most of all, I wanted to learn how to sell a business. I filled out a questionnaire, provided Ali with all the financials and analytics, and then he helped me schedule calls with buyers. Could you tell me the process of how you listed it and how you attracted buyers?
Yes, so we have a database. We say, okay, these people look at SaaS companies in the past. We send basically a newsletter to these buyers. Now, this is a very surface level newsletter. It doesn't reveal the name of the company. It looks like a teaser, basically. And they have to reply back. And when they do reply, we send them an NDA. And then we send them a more complete book. We say, okay, for sure, of course, we say, let me know if you have any questions, if you want to speak with the owner. We try to give them a specific deadline to ask questions. We don't always have to do that. Again, sometimes they will ask the questions themselves because they are very interested. And we send all those questions to the seller. Sometimes we send them all at the same time. Sometimes we send them as we receive them. And sometimes also we create a document with all these questions and all the answers, and we send them to all the buyers. That's to make sure you don't have to repeat the same answer as the seller, but also is to also tell the buyer that there are other potential investors interested. And then we give them now a second deadline to present an indication of interest. An indication of interest, basically, I'm interested. And then we set up a call. We give a second deadline to present this time a letter of intent. The letter of intent, this one is not binding except some clause like confidentiality and other stuff. The buyer is basically saying to the seller, here's what I think your business is worth, but I need to do my due diligence. But for right now, this is what I think it's worth. And then after that, we go to the due diligence process and so on.
After speaking to a few buyers and declining 2 offers over the course of a month, we found our guy, Jake. Can you tell me about some of the events that happened or the things you thought about that eventually made you decide to start researching different businesses to acquire?
So I'm currently a student at Stanford's Graduate School of Business, and I started last fall, but have actually decided to take a year off, so to take a leave of absence, partly because of the COVID situation, and partly I've just always wanted a year to work on my own entrepreneurial project. So towards the end of the first quarter, I was thinking, okay, what do I want to work on this year off, this 2021? And I knew I wanted it within the constraints of video games. Because, as I mentioned, I have a background in computer science and digital art. So video games are kind of the perfect focus with that kind of background. And I have a list of over 100 different projects that I would potentially work on. So I have no problem coming up with ideas for projects to work on. But somehow buying a business made its way to the top of that list. So you're not gonna believe it, but I actually started this search in Google. I think I looked up video game SaaS company for sale. And there are several marketplaces online for buying and selling digital businesses, but I found the place where 72D server hosting was listed, requested more information, and the stars aligned.
After a single call, which was mainly me answering questions about the business, we negotiated the price and gave Jake 30 days of exclusive rights to purchase the business while doing his due diligence. A couple calls and emails later, I officially sold 72D server hosting. This isn't much of an accomplishment, but I'm really glad that I went through this whole process. And I was very surprised that we found a buyer like Jake who needed very little convincing and also has the creative and technical skills to really grow the business, which I obviously wasn't going to do. I think the main takeaway from this is that When I was starting this business in 2017, I was very desperate to make any kind of business work. I wasn't just working on this, I was doing freelancing for very low rates. I was doing e-commerce, I was working on other software startups. I knew that if I could make one business work, then I could do it again and I could do it better. So it was okay that this idea wasn't particularly exciting or original. And now that I'm done with it, I'm just glad to know that the business is in good hands, and I think there's a lot of good things coming for 7D2D server hosting. What's in store for 7D2D server hosting?
So what are the obvious low-hanging fruits? Expanding the service to other games. Soon coming out is Valheim.
Did you know Valheim was a thing before you bought this business? Because I didn't.
I did not. Valheim came out like 3 weeks ago.
I know, right?
And it's already sold millions of copies. Longer term plan is thinking about, so one way I've started thinking about the business is it's kind of like real estate. So I rent servers and then I sublease those servers to other people and they pay me rent. So right now, renting a handful of servers which are not at full occupancy. So I need to think of ways to attract people to lease or sublease these servers from me. Longer term vision, and something I've been thinking about, is just computing power for creatives. So my fiance is a video editor and she waits around a lot, just waiting for videos to render on her local machine. So there are some services out there for remote rendering, like rendering farms. But that could still be better, and it's not known among creatives. It's like computing power for creatives. Maybe someday that'll be the big business.